years, I certainly care that a young man receives attention for his high school career, and I think that's nice that these services are so visible now. But what I do think along the way, as I've talked to other assistant coaches through other programs, is they're only to recruit so many stars and above. When you get into that, you actually start trusting someone else's or an outside entity's view more than your own, and then it kind of stops distinguishing program from program on what each of us are looking for. I happen to be at a place that is very distinctive, so the number of stars really is irrelevant, even though it's fun for the fans to see, and it's a nice story, and it generates momentum to the program. That's certainly not all we're interested in. But for many, I can see why they do that because of the momentum it generates, especially when you start now ranking recruiting classes before the kids have ever played. And that's an interesting thought.
Coach, you're always careful to point out the return missionaries you have and include that into the class. You have 12 of them, brand new from the Desert East, by the way. And can you just talk more specifically about the 12 kids you have coming in, specifically about Russell T. LeVay and the changes you've seen?
Yeah, I think that that'll be best just to maybe give an insight into a story rather than hitting all 12. Russell T. LeVay was a 3-year starter for us. He tore his ACL amidst those 3 years of starting, and Russell came into BYU, I can't say with no intentions of serving a mission, but with probably little intention of serving, and really struggled in terms of growing and maturing and finding himself, but did and was making progress each and every year. One of the highlights of my coaching career at BYU is the day he came into my office and told me he's going to serve a mission. Now you take it from a normal coach at a normal school's perspective. Here's a starting defensive lineman going into his senior year that says he's not going to be there, and that usually would send panic. Yet there wasn't a single coach. The hugs were probably the deepest and the embraces were probably the warmest for Russell up and down the hallway, and the conversation with his parents on the phone, not only before he went, but when he came back. It's been a remarkable experience, and to see the changes in all the young men when they come back from their mission is an amazing experience for me as the head coach to see, and I feel lucky to coach them. There are unique challenges in managing all those numbers, and the conditioning elements, both of kids coming and going, etc. But again, I think through at least the past 7 years, we have shown sustainability, credibility, and consistency in managing all that and still performing at a high level. And I'm expected to do that for the kids too. That's not for just the program. That's for those kids that go and come back to something that's worth coming back to.
Hey Coach, AJ Swart with 11 News. With this being the first recruiting season since the Brandon Davies scenario that's obviously brought more exposure to the honor code of BYU, I wonder if that was an issue that you broached more with your recruits, especially non-LDS ones, and how that kind of played out on the recruiting trail.
You know, most of the time spent on the honor system and honor code at BYU was prior to this recruiting class. It came up a number of times, but usually from the family calling saying, we saw how BYU handled that incident, and we are interested because of that. Now that there was a school that actually, even though BYU was ranked 3rd at the time in basketball, and this idea of how important that was, but then that might be put at risk for the sake of principle, was appealing and actually was viewed, and this isn't just press conference rhetoric, so to speak, or coach speak, I think is the term for it. This is, from a sincere perspective, most parents were appreciative that there was a teachable moment to talk about that way. So very, very little negative impact, probably 4 or 5 to 1 in terms of the issues that we've dealt with as a staff because of BYU's standards, which again we view as a strength and really want young men to aspire to come. I have to say this though, we're very clear at presenting those, and sometimes when young men don't choose BYU, it's viewed as a loss by our program. Remember, they're actually choosing, it's not something that they want. So it's really a success for both, not only BYU but the school they choose, because it's probably going to be a better experience for them because we're so clear what the standards are, and I want them to really want those rather than to feel like they have to do